Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you have been glued to the tech wire today, or frankly just any major news outlet, the situation in Paris just shifted. It went from what we usually call a regulatory headache to a full-blown legal crisis. It is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. And we are not talking about fines anymore. We are not talking about a sternly worded letter. We are talking about French law enforcement physically walking through the doors of a major social media platform.
It's a massive escalation.
Yeah.
I mean, usually when we sit down to discuss tech regulation, we're talking about, bureaucrats in Brussels looking at spreadsheets.
Right, calculating percentages for a fine.
Exactly. Today, we're looking at the cybercrime division of the Paris prosecutor's office executing a physical search.
And that's the headline grabbing everyone, police raid X's offices. But there's a second part buried in the reporting that I think is even bigger. They didn't just search the building. They issued a summons. And not to some local manager.
No.
To the owner, Elon Musk.
Which just changes the entire calculus.
So, welcome to the deep dive. We've got the reporting from the New York Times right here. It's titled French Judicial Siege. And that's our mission today. We want to understand why this is happening now, what specific charges triggered a police raid. And this is the part that really gets me. How an investigation that started with a simple question about an algorithm has, mutated into a criminal probe involving AI.
It's a complex web, for sure, but when you pull on the strings, it really comes down to a clash of two very, very different legal realities.
So let's start with the event itself. We need to ground this for everyone listening. The Times calls it a judicial siege. That feels like very deliberate language.
Oh, absolutely. It's not a spat.
No, not a disagreement, a siege.
A siege implies a sustained multi-front attack, It's designed to surround and wear down defenses. And looking at the facts here, that's exactly what X is facing.
So this wasn't spontaneous?
Not at all. The police didn't just decide to swing by this morning. The reporting is very clear that this is the culmination of a year-long investigation.
A year? So the authorities have just been building this file quietly for 12 months.
Precisely. And notice who is leading it. That's a key detail here.
Right.
It isn't a media watchdog. It isn't a civil regulator.
It's the cybercrime division.
Right. Of the Paris prosecutor's office. This is a specialized unit. They handle the most complex, high-stakes digital offenses in the country. When they get involved, we've moved past civil liability.
Where you just pay a fine and move on.
Exactly. We've moved into the territory of criminal liability.
And that distinction is just so vital. I mean, in the U.S., we're used to the FTC or the DOJ looking at antitrust. It feels, corporate. This feels rougher.
It is. This feels like the penal code.
It's personal.
It is personal.
Yeah.
And that's the significance of the summons to Musk. In corporate law, there's usually this corporate veil, right? It protects executives from being personally liable for what the company does.
Yeah.
You find the entity, you don't arrest the boss.
But by issuing a summons directly to the owner,
the French prosecutors are signaling they believe the decision-making at the very, very top is directly linked to these alleged crimes.
They're trying to pierce that veil.
They're saying, we don't want to talk to your lawyers in France. We want to talk to you. And that's a message that is going to echo way beyond Paris.
Okay, so they have the world's attention. But you don't raid an office. You don't spend a whole year investigating, unless you have a pretty serious list of accusations. The source material says there are 7 charges.
7 specific accusations. And it's not vague stuff like, community guideline violations.
No. Okay, we can't go through all 7, but the Times highlights 3 that really seem to be the pillars of this case. And I want to drill down on these because they explain why this is a criminal matter. The first one is, it's jarring just to read it, complicity in distributing images of a child of a pornographic nature.
This is likely the most dangerous charge for the platform, legally speaking. And we need to parse that word very carefully. Complicity.
Because that is such a loaded legal term. To a layman, complicity sounds like you helped, like you drove the getaway car.
In a digital context, it's more nuanced, but the effect is similar. In French law, and this is generally true in Europe, complicity can be established if you knowingly provide the tools to facilitate a crime.
Or if you just refuse to take action.
Right, if you refuse to take action to the point where you are actively enabling it. The prosecutor isn't arguing that X created the images. They're arguing that the platform's infrastructure, its distribution mechanics, make it a participant.
So the argument is not, you failed to catch this. It's, you built a machine designed to spread this and you're not stopping it.
Precisely. It shifts the narrative from just negligence, oops, we missed one, we have a billion posts a day, to active participation. If they can prove the architecture of the platform prioritizes engagement over safety to the point where it knowingly circulates CSAM, that's complicity.
That is a terrifying standard for a tech company. Your code could make you an accomplice.
It's the nuclear option in platform regulation.
Then we get the second charge from the report: denial of crimes against humanity. Now, for anyone listening in the US, this might just sound like a free speech debate.
It really might. You could say terrible, historically inaccurate things in the U.S., and generally the government can't touch you.
The First Amendment.
Right. In the U.S., hate speech is often protected unless it incites immediate violence or falls into these very, very narrow exceptions. But France operates under a completely different framework. They have specific laws, like the Gay-Sot Act, that make denying the Holocaust a crime.
Not a policy violation, a crime.
A crime. So this isn't about X's terms of service. This is about the French Penal Code.
And the French state views Holocaust denial as an assault on the dignity of victims, a threat to public order. So if X is broadcasting that into France...
The authorities view it no differently than if someone was standing on a street corner in Paris shouting it through a megaphone.
But here's the friction point that always comes up.
Yeah.
The internet is global. X is a U.S. company. Can France really police what a U.S. platform hosts?
And that is the central tension of the modern internet. It's the jurisdictional challenge. U.S. tech companies have for so long operated on this idea that the internet is a borderless town square.
They adhere to U.S. laws and just export that culture.
Exactly. But European sovereigns are now saying, no, your servers might be in California, but your users are in Paris. When the data crosses our border, it follows our laws. This raid is the physical manifestation of that argument.
It's a reality check. You can't just code your way out of national sovereignty.
And you can't ignore the third charge the Times mentions, because it pivots from the content to the business model itself. Fraudulent extraction of data.
This one feels a little more technical. What does fraudulent extraction even look like in this context?
It implies a deception in how user data is harvested. It could be related to scraping taking data without permission, or it could be about using user data for purposes they never consented to.
Like training AI models.
That is a very, very strong possibility, especially given the other elements of this investigation. If a platform is sucking up user interactions, private messages, photos, to train a model, and the user was never explicitly told, hey, we're using your life to build our bot, that can be viewed as fraudulent extraction.
You're taking value from the user under false pretenses.
Exactly.
Which is a perfect segue into the next layer of this story. Because while the raid is about these specific charges, the origin of this whole investigation is fascinating. It didn't start with the police.
No.
It started with a politician and a question about code.
Right. The Times traces this back to Eric Bothorel. He's a centrist lawmaker in France. And his initial complaint wasn't about child safety or the Holocaust. It was just about the algorithm.
The sorting hat. The thing that decides what I see when I open the app.
The recommendation engine. Bothorel was concerned about the opacity of it, the black box that decides why you see what you see. He wrote to the prosecutors because he felt the sorting mechanism itself was a problem.
So it starts as this technical inquiry. How does your feed work?
But then, and this is the critical pivot in the story, the investigation expanded. It grew from looking at the algorithm, which is about how content is sorted, to looking at the AI, which is about how content is created.
Enter Grok.
Enter Grok, X's AI chatbot. And the investigation file grew to include specific accusations against this generative tool.
And this is where we really need to clarify something, because algorithm and AI get used interchangeably all the time, but here they are two totally different legal beasts.
A massive difference.
I mean, there's a huge technical difference between an algorithm amplifying a user's bad post and an AI just creating a bad post from scratch.
Huge. An algorithm is a filter. It says, user A posted this, let's show it to user B.
Yeah.
The platform can argue, hey, we didn't make the post, we just delivered the mail. But Grok is a large language model. It's generative.
It creates.
It creates. And according to the prosecutor, Laure Becquet, Grok isn't just chatting about the weather. The accusations are that it has been spreading Holocaust denial claims and sexual deepfakes.
Let's just pause on the sexual deepfakes part for a second. This connects right back to that complicity charge we talked about.
It does. If you build a tool that allows a user to generate non-consensual pornographic imagery of a real person, you haven't just hosted content. You've provided the weapon.
That just destroys the neutral platform defense, doesn't it? You can't say we're just a bulletin board if the bulletin board is drawing the picture for you.
It severely damages it.